Lords of the Fallen, a breakdown of the three schools of magic.
Over the course of our month-long coverage of Lords of the Fallen, we've dived deep into the Umbral Axiom dual realm mechanic, went over some vital combat tips, and talked about the ways in which the developers at Hexworks are aiming to innovate upon the standard Souls-like formula.
Yes.
But one important element that we've only briefly touched upon has been the magic system of the game. And so, let's correct that oversight and break down how magic works in Lords of the Fallen.
How Magic Works by IGN. Three schools of magic.
In new Lords of the Fallen, there are three schools of magic, each tied to one of the three warring gods at the
Pyromancy Run Part
Rogar,
2, anyone?
Magic of the god of chaos, Adir, Radiant, the holy magic of the god Aureus, and Umbral, the magic of the goddess that rules the Umbral realm. Each school of magic has their own unique type of catalyst that you'll need to equip in order to wield it, but you're free to specialize in whichever you want. Of course, that choice will largely come down to your own stats and what kind of build you're aiming for. There are two core magic stats when it comes to magic scaling. Infernal is what players will want to sink points into if they want to specialize in Rogar Pyromancy, and Radiance is the stat for Radiant magic. Interestingly, Umbral magic actually scales with both of them, so you'll have to make the choice of whether you want to go full Pyromancy, full Radiance, or double dip into both so that you can go big on Umbral magic. As for the spells themselves, as you might imagine, Rogar spells focus on big explosive damage, with basic fireballs that deal big AoE damage, damage over time flamethrowers, a hail of meteors,
that's pretty cool,
and even a summon that causes fire dogs to fight for you.
Summons fire dogs, I remember that from the other one.
Spells are focused more on buffs and heals for the most part, but they do still have plenty of ways to deal damage as well. You've got a lightning bolt projectile, a short-lived lightning lance laser beam style of spell, and a lightning orb spell, among others. And finally, Umbral spells seem to be far slower moving, but still pack quite a punch once they find their way to a target. We've seen an ability that coats your weapon with Umbral power, a spell that calls up a series of bombs that explode a short distance away from
Dude, Pyromancy and Umbral, that's what I'll be going for.
And then explodes for massive damage.
Hell yeah.
This is just a small handful of the spells that players can expect to wield in Lords of the Fallen.
That's if I do one.
Developers assured me that the list of spells is extensive, and in fact, every spell you see an enemy use against you, you can learn a variation for yourself, and we'll come back around to that shortly.
Balance
One
of
the
power.
Challenges of implementing magic systems in a Souls-like is that it's hard to find that sweet spot of making magic feel strong and satisfying without making it feel overpowered. If you make it too weak, on the other hand, then you run into the opposite problem of making it hard to justify the sacrifices that a player must make with their stat allocation in order to properly utilize magic.
Truth.
To that end, the developers at Hexworks have balanced magic to be strong, but also have enemies that have natural resistances to the elements. At the beginning of the game, for instance, you'll run into a bunch of enemies that are resistant to Rogar spells, making it a tough early going for anyone that tries to go heavy on Pyromancy, but once you're able to get through that section, you'll have a much smoother time until you start running into those fire-resistant enemies again. On the flip side of that, there are also areas where Radiant magic will be strong and weak. Essentially, there's no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to magic, and there are occasions where you may find yourself having to change up your strategy to deal with certain enemies in various regions of Lords of the Fallen's world. Beyond those three main schools of magic, there are also secondary types of magic, such as frost, poison, and so on, which you'll generally be able to utilize by finding specific items that can be thrown or applied to your weapon. And each of those will also be strong or weak against specific types of enemies as well, so there's a lot of room for experimentation when it comes to finding the right type of magic to deal with enemies.
Dude just threw a spear.
With so many spells to learn, it begs the question, how do you obtain them? Of course, there's the tried and true method of simply finding them by exploring the world, opening chests, and finding shinies out in the wild. What was interesting to me was that there's also a Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow-like system as well. Killing certain enemies also gives a % chance that you'll be able to loot their particular spell, because, as I said before, every spell you see is a spell you can learn. In addition to that, bosses will have remnants to discover after you've defeated them, and if you soulflay that, you'll be able to take that to an NPC back in your hub, who will be able to transform it into some sort of
just like Dark Souls.
Sometimes that's a unique weapon, and sometimes it will be a powerful spell that the boss
just like Dark Souls, absolutely. That is cool as hell.
And that's currently everything there is to know about Magic in Lords of the Fallen. Everything else you're going to have to learn for yourself when Lords of the Fallen releases on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC on October 13th, 2023.
October
Thanks for watching.
13th.
For more Lords of the Fallen,
We got a month, bruh. Got a month. Lords of the Fallen in a month, my dude. What? I'm excited. I can't wait to play that game.